right.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first night of the Exceptional Woman's Reboot 2021. And so we are so excited to have you on tonight. If this is your first time joining with us, then I want to welcome you. I am Evita Smith, the founder here at Exceptional Living Empowerment Coaching. And so we welcome you. We have a dynamic guest tonight. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about. This is Women's History Month. And so we find it the perfect month to really deal with some women's issues. As we know, we all probably need a reboot. We've been in a different time right now as we've gone through this year. And in 2020, a lot of us went through a lot with the pandemic and loss of jobs and all kind of things. And so we really needed to get back to a place where we remember what are our goals, our dreams, those things that we set to do, those things in our lives we want to get in order. And so that's the purpose on tonight, for us to have that reboot. Like sometimes when your computer gets out of order, you have to turn it off and turn it back on and get it restarted so you can go forward. That's what we're doing tonight. And so if you find yourself asking, what is an exceptional woman? The exceptional woman is that woman that wants to raise the bar in her life, not trying to be a carbon copy of anybody else, trying to live at a standard higher than most, saying, I'm going to beat the status quo. I'm not going to be mediocre, but I'm going to live exceptionally, mind, body, and spirit in every area of our lives. And so that's what the exceptional woman is. And so we invite you, if you have not, like us on Facebook and Instagram at Exceptional Living, you can do it at Elect Coaching and you'll find us there. And so we want to be able to gather with you from time to time. We're talking about different women's issues because we want to see women win. We want to see women take control of their lives and really live it exceptionally. So that's what we're doing on tonight. And so tonight I have our first guest. I'm so excited. She's been with us before, and I'm grateful that she had time tonight to pencil us in as she's quite busy. And so I will definitely say you need to follow her on all of her social media. She'll give that to us shortly. But I want to introduce everyone to the trauma healer, and that is Shae Nicole. She is a licensed professional therapist and trauma expert with over 8 years of experience in the field of mental health, and we take mental health seriously. She specializes in trauma and guides women to inner healing, to unburden and restore healing to wounded parts. She primarily serves women and marginalized populations who struggle with past childhood trauma, people pleasing, anxiety, and stress. And those are all some issues that most of us women can say that we experience. She is the owner of the Healing Spot based in Georgia, where she provides mental health services virtually. And so I just ask you to help me welcome our special guest on tonight, night one, Miss Shae Nicole. Thank you so much for joining with us on tonight. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am doing well. Thank you again. I'm excited to be here again.
How are you navigating this pandemic, since all of us have had to kind of
Whew.
change our lifestyles, and with you dealing with mental health and also dealing with your own and making sure that you stay well as you're married with children? How have you been doing?
Well, I've been doing my best, of course, to stay safe. So a lot of my time is spent indoors, at home, with the exception of if I do see clients face to face. But most of the time has been spent, sheltered in, quarantined, staying safe, making sure that when we go out, we wear our masks. And going out has been here and there. So we're slowly starting to venture back out. But of course, during the time where we were just staying in the house most of the time, we were, trying to find different ways to just take care of our mental health, kind of switch it up because the pandemic forced everyone to kind of take a look at their lives to see if there's some changes that need to be made, And of course, with the pandemic came a mental health crisis.
Hmm.
And wow, like I think they said mental health increased 30, 40% for people requesting services. It might be higher than that. I'm not exactly sure because the results I saw was in the fall of that research. But whew, the pandemic has put a number on everyone, like as far as just shaking up things. But of course, I've been doing my best to take care of my family and my mental health as well.
Wonderful. Yes, it's definitely taken a toll on all of us. And I definitely felt like it was important to start with mental health as we are talking about women getting back on track. And as we're starting to see things open back up slightly, that this is that time when people start to say, okay, maybe I can start revisiting how I can get back into life and get back on track with my goals. I want to start off first. Tell us a little bit about your business and what you do. I know we just heard your bio, but it's best to hear from sources. Say exactly what your business is and how do you help women dealing with their mental health.
Yes, I am the owner of the Healing Spot based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm able to also reach individuals located in Florida and New Jersey. That because I'm licensed in those states as well. So, and I am primarily virtual. So, come April, I'll be fully open. I'm migrating from a job I have into full practice for myself. And in that practice, I primarily do help women that have struggled with childhood trauma. And in that process, we're getting to know one another, just building that therapeutic rapport. But also, we're getting to the root core of a lot of issues that women may come to me with. So it may not always be awareness that it is something linked back to my childhood. Somebody might just come to me because they're depressed or they have anxiety or they're just having some trouble with motivation or other things in their lives. Um, but of course, with my trauma lens on, typically I know there may be some stuff there that you are unaware of. But of course, I don't spill the beans in the beginning. I kind of help you slowly work to that so that you can get to that conclusion yourself to figure out what is the root of the issue um, that my clients may be struggling with in their lives. And a lot of times I do work, I tell people I'm not your average talk therapist. So that will mean that we will have some sessions that we're talking, we're getting to know one another, but I work somatically with my clients and a lot of the modalities that I do. So kind of like body work in a way, but we're mainly noticing and focusing in on areas of your body where you actually feel your emotions and working from there. And that's where most of my work is based in. And then, a lot of my clients just said they get a lot of help in focusing in on that. And then, through the questioning, I ask them and work with them. They're able to get to some of those core issues and kind of open that awareness up. So that's what I do in my practice. And I don't know. I guess I'll give my information out a little bit later about how to
Yes, we will
contact.
definitely do that. One thing that we like to do with these sessions is that we talk about the business, but we also talk about the issues that relate to that. How did you get started in this particular area? What made you want to deal with trauma work? And
Well, look, I was 17, 18, graduated from high school. I was supposed to be a pharmacist. I was dead set. I was looking at schools for pre-pharmacy. I was going on the college tours. If the school didn't have pre-pharmacy as their major, I wasn't visiting. So I went to school, headed out as a pre-pharmacy student. I took psychology 101 and I was sold. I was like, this is fascinating. I've got to know more about this. So I switched my major without really, I guess, doing research. I was just like, this is cool. I like this. I'm going to go into this. So I graduated, of course, with my bachelor's degree in psychology, went to school for more psychology in a master's degree. So I kind of fell into that thinking I was going to work with kids in the educational sector because that's where I kind of started off with. But then after I was done with that degree, I was like, I kind of want to really work in the mental health field. So Then I went back for my second master's and got into the mental health field, and I started working in community agencies to gain practice. But then I started slowly seeing a thread as that I about being at home and the family members knowing and they wouldn't say things, or I had other women that would say things to me like, how their mother treated them, and, and no way I arrived at where I am now, things kind of worked backwards for me, meaning I kind of started recognizing things along the way are after the fact. So we get our basis at school, then we are responsible for our own specialization. So I was like, well, let me go see what this trauma stuff is all about. I'm really interested in it. A lot of clients that are coming my way have trauma, like every person. So I was like, let me get more educated about this because I'm starting to see a common thread. And as I took the class, I felt like I was awoken and shaken from like kind of like a fog because this wasn't ever told to me. I was like, they were like, trauma is held in the body. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, so talk therapy ain't always going to get it. And so I was just like, that was my aha moment for my journey as a therapist. Like, hot diggity dog, here we go. I'm about to get all the trainings. So something about me is I love to learn, hence the 3 degrees. Uh, so I'm just a career student because I love to absorb information. And so I have to slow myself down sometimes and be like, you're not taking another training, Shae, you need to slow down. But I also was thinking like, since a lot of women in that I was meeting and people in my community didn't know this, I was like, I gotta bring this education back to the people. Like we need to hurry up and get this thing started. So, and I would find out that of course these trainings were expensive or Black individuals didn't have access to these trainings. So I was like, we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna make sure they get some access to this healing. So I just went on a warpath of first getting trained in EMDR, getting trained in brain spotting, getting trained in hypnotherapy, getting trained in internal family systems. And so I kind of like built like just these different trainings to kind of help me understand what is the best way to work with trauma. And of course, my conclusion is we are going through the body. So I make a joke. Well, one of my colleagues told me like you're going where the trauma resides, like the
I like
the
that.
money resides. So I was like, we're gonna where the trauma resides, which is in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that, it just set my heart on fire of like, I'm gonna get all this learning, these training, these teachings, or whatever I need to really bring it back to our community so that I can help these women heal. And when I tell you, it just sets my soul on fire every time I'm in a session, and the light bulb goes off for them. And it's like, I'm excited, but I can't get too excited
Like we
because
got work to
they're
do.
going through their process. And so I just love seeing women heal from their trauma. And I tell them everybody has that internal healing within them. All I'm doing is just kind of help holding their hand along the way and guiding them to there because it's there. But we just need to shift some things around for you to see that and to feel it.
I can identify with the lifelong learner. I love going to school as well. Some people like you're never going to finish. But I think it's so important what you said that, and I just had this conversation with a colleague that there's not a lot of resources that are sometimes tailored to people of color. And one thing that we find is that a lot of times they do not want to go to therapy. Therapy has like such a bad connotation when we start to talk about it. Why do you think so many people don't really want to go to therapy?
I definitely, of course, seen the pattern of um, it starts where back in the day, I don't know how long, we can probably trace this back to slavery of, whatever goes on here stays in the house. We're not going to tell other people our business. And in the course, families have experienced where they have their trust has been broken by other people outside the home. Defects coming in the home if something is reported, or they thought they were talking to somebody in confidence and it didn't go over too well. So when that trust is broken or not being able to trust others outside the home, it becomes difficult to go out there and get help from a stranger. You don't know this person, and you're going to talk to somebody that, you just randomly might have found on the internet or by word of mouth. And then, so there's that part of the stigma. And then the other part of the stigma that I often see is that the younger generations are being told by older generations that going to therapy is crazy, why you got to talk to these people about XYZ, you should just pray about it, um go to church. And I'm like, you can have Jesus and a therapist too, sis. You can't, like, you don't have to always just pray about it. We were blessed with common sense and the ability to make decisions for a reason. So, and we are an interdependent society. We depend on one another for survival. If we were lived in isolated bubbles, I don't know how long we would be able to live sanely
Hmm.
and be okay with that. So going to a therapist to get help, there's nothing wrong with that because we do need help from one another. And that's just a different type of help. You're going to someone who is not judgmental, someone that doesn't have a stake in the different areas of your life. And so, there's so many different stigmas that we are trying to break that barrier on to let people know it's okay to not be okay, but also to get help when needed, so that things don't go so far left that you're not able to come back from.
I think one of the things that you mentioned early on was in doing this, it's not just about talk therapy, it's about what's going on in the body. And we don't realize that sometimes the extra weight that we may be carrying or the illnesses that we may be going through are a result of some unnamed or even unrecognized traumas. What are some other issues that people should start to really look for within themselves, especially women, that are maybe some indicators that say, I might need to look into getting some therapy? Because sometimes we, like you said, we have been taught and conditioned to we take care of everybody else, but we don't know how to get taken care of. And then we do have the spiritual component where it's like, Jesus will fix it. I think our tagline tonight is you can have Jesus and a therapist. And so what are some things that women should look for even within themselves to say, hey, I might need to look at getting some therapy?
Right. So there are some very known things that most people already know about, like depression and anxiety. We hear those words very often. Depression could look like, to the extreme part, as far as like not taking care of yourself, not taking care of your hygiene or the house, not cleaning up, not being engaged in things that you like to do. Or some people hide their depression really well, where typically when people ask them, well, how are you doing? And you just like lie, or you feel like you're wearing a mask on your face and you're not really exposing your true feelings to others, but when you get alone, you're breaking down. Or anxiety, you're worried all the time. You frequently go down these rabbit holes of trying to figure things out. Or you're anxious, meaning in the body you're feeling, nervous or shaky or panicky or sweaty. So those are kind of more of the ones that people hear all the time. The ones that people are often shocked by when I bring it up to my clients, um, People pleasing. People pleasing is definitely, I won't say all the time, but a good a bit of people pleasing could be caused by past trauma because it is a survival skill. You're literally trying to survive. So in that survival, you're trying to make sure things stay calm, collected. You're not rocking the boat. You're trying to make sure you're well liked by everyone because if not, then that means chaos may endure. You're not in control of the environment, or feeling like you aren't in control or needing control can also be a symptom. So when people feel like they don't know what's next, or they're fearing, like really fear the unknown, or they just feel like, oh, I have people have to like me, or if I'm not perceived a certain way, it's going to cause disruption, or I'm afraid for people to be angry at me, or I need things to be perfect, perfectionism, overachievers. Um, and it can definitely show up in your relationships with other people. Maybe you're shutting people out like all the time. Is there a constant pattern in your relationships that you're noticing that showing up where you're cutting people out of your lives left and right to the extent where nobody is close to you? Or you have a hard time asking or receiving help, and um, you're just you're at the point of like, I rather do it myself because if I ask for people to help, they're either going to disappoint me, or um, I'm going to get hurt again. So when things like that are manifesting in your life, that is a good indication that perhaps there's some need to get additional help. Because people think that, I call it like the traditional trauma, where people think that um, there's, oh, I haven't had a major car accident, or I haven't been to war, I'm not a soldier, or I wasn't, rape is correlated um, with trauma, or I wasn't um, assaulted or kidnapped or something. So people think about the extremes, but in there could be some of the smaller traumas that have impacted us from when we were younger that we're not recognizing. Or is there a voice coming from one of your parents when you're constantly trying to do something, or day to day, that there's some negative thoughts coming there? But I ask my clients, like, whose thought is that? Is that your thought, or is that thought belong to someone else? Is that your story, or is that someone else's narrative? Because we know that generationally things can be passed down to us, and then subconsciously we may not really understand, or until we start thinking about it a little bit closer, of like, oh, my grandma did that, and so then my mom did that, and so now I'm doing it too. And sometimes we just don't question, we just do out of um, it being our usual or our norm. So, once we're starting to pick up on some things, and we're starting to see things just aren't clicking, or our relationships are always going down the drain, or we can't, or we're always attracting the same type of person, there may be an indication of trauma in our lives.
Those are some good things to listen to, because a lot of times we think that, oh, it's got to be this big thing, like I was violently assaulted or those things, like you said. But we don't realize that sometimes it's just the stuff that was passed down to us. And as women, we are already conditioned to think we're supposed to do everything. And so one of the things that we find ourselves is in that superwoman mindset. And that superwoman mindset will have you taking care of everybody else and not realizing that there's something in me that's allowed me to do this. Speak to
Mhm.
the woman that may be dealing with that superwoman syndrome, and what are some things that you need to start thinking about and how to reboot your mental and your emotional health in that, because it's not necessarily a healthy mindset, even though we feel like, I mean, we're empowered women. You're supposed to be able to do everything, to be the wife, the mother, the business owner, the educator, all of that, but you find yourself possibly burnt out or stressed
Right,
out.
definitely. Super, superwoman syndrome. I used to deal with it too. I had to learn to put down my cape. Um, and knowing that I can't do everything. But oftentimes that comes from us might seeing that pattern in our own families. Like my grandma, she held the community down, or my mom was always giving to everyone, and they did it all. We often see moms, they're working, or they're taking care of the home. And so it's like we have, as a society, we're, I guess, high-fiving strong women, like, oh, you're so strong, sis, you got this, you're so strong, but they're drowning. And so I've seen this meme go around for a while where this woman, they were like high-fiving her and telling her how strong she was, but she was in the water, like drowning, like she needed help. So it is oftentimes, I know it sounds cliche, but the strongest person may also be weak, the weakest person inside, because we have the society, as a society, we've amped up that independent strong woman so much that people are like, oh, okay, I want some of that recognition too. But then at what cost is that recognition going to cost you? Are, trying to do everything or keep up with the Joneses, trying to keep up with the Instagram and Facebook likes and things like that. And so when trying to keep up with all of what society may expect of you, or different things like that, you may get lost in trying to do all the things, not ask for help, because if you ask for help, you're weak. And then when you do ask for help, you may not know how to receive it, or when someone notices, you may just like, I don't need any help, I'm good, I'm straight. So getting to the point of taking off the cape is going to take awareness of either yourself, or your body's going to let you know.
Mhm.
And that can mean sickness, illness of some sort, of you, like your body will tell you when there's something wrong, and we may ignore it, trying to be super women. And burnout is real. So if we're not paying attention to these signs or these things going on with our body, or even if our lives are in a disarray in the background, but we put up this good front for everyone else, what good is that doing you if you're putting up this facade, like everything is just great, but in the background you got a mess. So there's gonna have to come a time, like, sister, you're gonna take your cape off so that you can get the help that you need, ask for the help that you need. And it may take time, it may, you know, asking for help is has been seen as a weakness for some cultures. But getting to the point of self-preservation so that you can not only take care of yourself but those around you, to me that's more important than having to try to do all the things and be recognized as a strong woman.
I think that's something important to look at because it really leads us into the idea of self care. Because we don't realize that when we get to those places, that self preservation is very important, but it's also been framed in some ways as being selfish because you're saying, I need to do something for me. How should someone really look at self care, especially like you were just saying, your body will start to tell you? And I'm a living witness. I've been through when your body starts saying, you need to sit down and you don't, and then you end up having to be forced to. But
Mm-hmm.
does someone who has that superwoman independent, I can do it, I've been doing it, get to that place of really understanding the need for the self care and to be able to start putting that in practice and what that may even look like? Because some people think it's just because you go take a bath, but that is not the fullness of understanding what self care is, especially from someone with that superwoman independent mindset.
Right. I say self care is definitely not selfish, because self care is self preservation. And when I say self preservation, I mean you are saving yourself so that you can gear up to not only pour back into you, but also into others around you. Because as a mother, wife, sister, daughter, all the things that I am, mental health therapist as well, I can't be the best in these areas of my life if I'm not pouring back into myself. And so, how would it be if I was just running, 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 running? running, and I don't take a break. And then my clients, I show up for my clients and I'm sitting there yawning, tired, going to sleep on them, or not really engaged. I'm not putting my best foot forward for them. So my clients know every 3 weeks I am not there. So I take a week off every single month. And but I let my clients know, they're like, "You taking off again?" I was like, "You want your best therapist? You want me being here with you? You want me best foot forward?" And they're like, "Okay, we get it." And I'm like, "Well, I definitely have to take care of myself first so that I can then have an overflow of the people that I'm trying to serve, my children, my family. Because if I'm always just running on E, then I'm going to be forced to sit down. Like you said, I'll be in somebody's hospital or on the bed at home being forced to sit down. Then all these other things that I've been paying attention or needing to pay attention to, those systems might go astray. So, there's only one me and there's only one you. So take care of it while we're here on this earth. Take care of yourself. Your self-preservation is not selfish. And I know that growing up, I didn't see self-care.
Mhm.
I saw my mama working, coming home tired, taking care of us. I'm grateful for all those things she did for me. But what I did not learn was self-care. So as an adult, I was taking care of my daughter as a single mom early in college, going to school, working 2 or 3 jobs, always on the go. But then I had to recognize, ooh, this is too much. I can't do it all. I have to ask for help. So self-care should be looked at as a way for you to not only keep going, but to pour back into yourself to refill your battery and your energy so that you can keep going for your work or whatever you're doing, or your purpose or your passion or your family or your friends, whatever your why is, or you'll be forced to sit down.
I think it's a reframing of our thought process of what it means to be women. And
Mhm.
especially if you're going to say you're going to live an exceptional life, you're going to live a balanced life, you have to take those things into consideration. You have to be willing to say, I have to give myself permission to take care of me. And I think that's one of the things that, as a mental health professional, that you can help us to understand what is the true value, and making that investment to really take care of ourselves, making that investment to go to therapy. A lot of people are like, oh, I can't afford it, or it's too much, or investing the time to take care of. And that, what do you tell people who are prospective clients who are saying, how do I look into possibly going into therapy, or and understanding the true value of what it means for their lives?
So definitely seeing the importance of how do you value yourself and your self-care and your in what you want to do as far as your passion or your goals. You know, pouring back into us, whether it's therapy or some form of self-care. Um, of course, like you said, reframing it is important. But then also, I asked them, there could be a thin line between keep going or being intentional about your self-care to prevent the burnout from happening. Self-care is definitely prevention, but the costs associated with therapy, whether you have a smaller budget or you're able to afford full fee, I let clients know that come to me that there are lower end scale therapy that is available. So I always, if somebody can't afford me or my fee, I will always direct them to sources or resources that would be able to help them. So it's going to take just a little bit of willpower of like, how much do I value my life to get the help that I need when it comes to you needing therapy? Or if I'm a little timid about therapy, what other ways can I get help in my life? What other resources do I need to assist me? Do I need someone to watch my kids for a little bit? Is there someone in the family that I trust, or, a close family friend or neighbor? What does it take for you to just get a moment to yourself? And you don't always have to start big. You don't have to always start going to therapy straight out the door. You can make small baby steps to get there to a point where you're taking time for yourself either in the mornings or the afternoons or evenings. But self care is intentional. That's the key. It's just not going to happen, because if you're expecting self care to show up at the door for you, it's not gonna happen. So self care is intentional, meaning you have to sit down and schedule it. You have to sit down and think about it. So that's one thing I know I do for myself. I'll start the week and say, where is my self care going this week? What is it going to look like? So intentionality is key, and probably the number one rule behind self care, because it's just not going to naturally happen if you don't put some thought into it.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is dealing with this pandemic. A lot of people have been in isolation, and I mean, we don't really know when we're going to come out. We're starting to see some things open up, but we are still very separated. And people, that takes a toll on our mental health. It moves us from a place of even talking about self-care, because we don't even know how to care for ourselves in this environment. So what has been some of the tools or some of the things you start to share with people who are dealing with the from isolationism, dealing with not knowing what tomorrow's going to look like? How do we begin to move in this new environment for us, and people who may be dealing with some of that depression or anxiety that goes along with something so traumatic as a pandemic?
Right. So with the pandemic, it changed a lot of things for us. And one thing I was telling my clients in the beginning of the pandemic and, during the summer months, I was like, you're going to have to get creative on how you get your socializing in. And I know that some people have became really used to being isolated, that, maybe some people actually like it. But then there's some people that are just suffering from being isolated so much. And of course, we are an interdependent society. We need each other to survive, whether we have the workers at the grocery store, people, hospitals, nurses, doctors, essential workers, frontline workers, and things like that. But also, that social connection is important as well, because that can also add to our mental health improving. So, some people have been doing Zoom calls with their families. I know we started a Zoom call once a month in January with my family. I'm really happy we started doing that, because we don't know when we're going to be able to have a family reunion again. So, doing that has definitely helped. Um, some people are doing social distancing meetups or gatherings, to the point where I think people were having like lunchtime trunk sessions, or they would sit in their trunks or their SUVs, and they'll kind of separate the cars a little bit and talk from there. I know people get tired of Zoom sessions or virtual things, so you got to get a little creative. I know some families, they'll try to do their best to make sure everybody tests before going to a secluded location to celebrate an anniversary or a birthday. And then, of course, we have a lot of venues opening back up in Georgia. A lot has been open,
Yeah.
but of course, before I go, I'm just really cautious still, where I'm asking, like, what is your COVID policy? How do you clean? Making sure I keep my mask on and follow whatever the CDC guidelines are. Calling restaurants, your table 6 feet apart. Y'all take reservations. How is this? So I try to scope the things that I do before I go out, if I do have that urge to socialize, and do my best to be preventative. Of course, getting the COVID vaccine is one of those things that I recently did to be a little bit more preventative. It doesn't prevent the getting COVID, but prevents the severity as well. But just doing socializing in a way that's comfortable for you. But if you do have that extreme depression or anxiety that has set in for COVID, and things are starting to decline more and more, I would strongly suggest reaching out for help if needed.
And one of the things you talked about is that you do virtual appointments. What does that look like? to have a virtual therapy appointment versus the in person? Because I think a lot of people get this mindset that you go in and you're going to lay on the couch or something with your therapist and have this conversation. But what does that look like having a virtual therapy appointment?
It's it's very similar to an in-person actually. Research has shown that in-person and virtual appointments have about the same amount of effectiveness. Virtual sessions, from my perspective, I know other therapists may do it differently, but all of my clients have a link that they just click on, and I invite them into the room. It's a HIPAA compliant private type of platform because we have to make sure that things are encrypted and protected for our clients' safety. So I make sure the platform that I utilizes as well. Um, so what I do is, click them, let them into the therapy room. We kind of check in. We see how things have been going for you lately since the last session. I ask them what type of goals or things we're working on in the session, and then we go from there. It's really hasn't changed the way I do therapy. Um, I feel like things are going pretty well, and a lot of clients are really loving the virtual platforms because they don't have to drive 30, 40 minutes in Atlanta traffic, because the traffic is ramping back up in Atlanta. It's not as bad as pre-COVID traffic, but it's there. So, preventing the 30, 40-minute drives or having a rush, or, just the headache that may come with some people that have to get to an appointment and coming back and scheduling that, because sometimes it could be a whole production trying
Mm-hmm.
to get to therapy sessions or doctor appointments and things like that. So the virtual realm has also allowed me to be in my clients' personal space, meaning that they're comfortable where they are. It's convenient for them. Sometimes my clients may be cooking or doing their hair, but as long as they're engaged with me, I don't have an issue with that, because that means they're comfortable with me.
Mm-hmm.
They're welcoming me into their environment. So, they're still engaged if they are, doing something with their hair or they're cooking, or they're just really, they feel that comfortable, and we still make progress. So I just love how my clients have taken to the virtual sessions. They say it's comfortable. They may do it on their lunch break at work. And I'm also noticing a lot of employers are starting to be more flexible with clients taking an hour out of their week to go to a therapy session. And they're just like, yeah, just, take that break off and go see your therapist or therapy for the people that have a good rapport with their management or bosses at work. Um, but I just love the flexibility of virtual sessions, and my clients do too, because it's just really convenient and comfortable for them.
As we get ready to bring our conversation to a close, what should somebody look for? What are some steps in how to find the right therapist? Because I mean, I know it's sort of like trying on dresses. Might have to try a couple before you find that perfect fit. But when you're looking for a therapist, especially as a woman who may be that superwoman trying to get to that place of, I'm going to admit I'm not okay. What
Mhm.
should you look for in a therapist when you're making that determination?
First and foremost, make sure the therapist is licensed in your state. Um, I know they're trying to, actually, Georgia's in the midst of trying to pass a bill where it's like some type of compact bill where we're able to practice across state lines with other states in the compact. So my fingers are crossed for other states to join us in on that, because when I tell you, I'm getting people from Hawaii, Michigan, other states that I'm not licensed in. Can I work with you? I really want to work with you. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not licensed in your state. So each state has different state regulations that regulate our license and things like that. So sometimes I can't just quickly get licensed with another state. That takes time, and sometimes it's almost impossible, because when I got licensed, the recommendations and standards were different till now. So sometimes they don't do grandfather things, or they'll be like, nope, these are the new regulations. So definitely make sure the therapist is licensed in your state. Secondly, look for someone that has some type of experience with what you're dealing with. So if for my clients, my niche and specialization is working with individuals that may struggle with anxiety, OCD, trauma, specific to childhood trauma or sexual abuse or domestic violence, things like that. So, but when people come to me with other types of trauma where I'm just not well versed in, I may send them to another therapist that may be a better fit for them. Like, I don't do family therapy, I don't do couples therapy. So make sure you find a therapist that fits your needs. And then, of course, um, other things you should be looking out for is availability. When's the next time they have an appointment available? How soon are you looking to get started? Does that match up for you? What days and times they have available? So kind of going and knowing, like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a client that has a therapist that has weekend availability or night availability? Are you willing to give up a weekday time? Because a lot of therapists may have weekday hours only. So it may be difficult for you to fit into their schedule. So making sure you find a therapist that has the flexibility and schedule that you're looking for, and do a consultation if they offer one. So some therapists offer free 15-minute consultations, just trying to get to know you. And if you've had therapy before, kind of evaluate, what did you like about your last therapist? What didn't you like? Kind of looking for more of what, now that you've gotten a taste of therapy, if you had a previous experience, how, what, what now would you like? Kind of like if you live somewhere in a new another house and now you're going to buy another house, what requirements would you like of your new house,
Mhm.
or what requirements would you like of your new therapist that would best fit you? So definitely take advantage of that free 15-minute call, if they offer it. Ask those questions that may be concerning to you. What are your rates? Making sure that either you're looking for somebody you want to use your insurance, look for a therapist that takes your insurance. If you're willing to self-pay, what is your budget? What is the absolute most that you could pay, or the least that you're looking to pay? So definitely take all of those things into mind. And if you do start with a therapist, I let my clients know, hey, if this does not work out, no harm, no foul. What I want for you is to get your healing wherever you need to get it. I am not the only therapist on earth that can help my clients. So, I definitely want people to be willing to try it out for a little bit. And sometimes, like you said, if the dress doesn't fit, you might have to go find a new one. So don't be afraid that if after a few sessions, 3 or 4 sessions, you're like, I'm not feeling this therapist, speak up. Or, some clients may ghost me, and you know what? I am not upset about that. That means that maybe you didn't have the courage to tell me, and
Mhm.
that's okay. And I don't take any harm to that. That means maybe you weren't ready, or maybe you needed to find another therapist that fit you better.
Do you think it's important for people to find what they consider a culturally competent therapist? Should a woman get another woman? Should people of color find someone, person of color, to treat them? Is that an important factor in choosing a therapist?
Definitely. I think people should find someone who they're comfortable with. Whether it is someone of the same ethnicity, race, gender, or things like that. But evaluate those things within yourself before you look for a therapist, to figure out what you will be most comfortable with. And if you've had previous therapy experiences where you comfortable with that person. But even despite you may be looking for a woman or a black therapist or a man, no matter what, you may still not have the best experience with the person that you're looking for, that fits these descriptors. But don't be afraid to try again with the same or different descriptors. Because I've heard people say, I'm a black woman, but I had a white female therapist that was great. Or, I had a male therapist that was great. So, but be willing to just look, kind of see if when people read different profiles, they're just like, I connected, and people tell me this all the time, I connected with what your profile said to me. And a lot of times those clients end up being really good therapists, I mean, really good clients, because my profile, I try to make sure it speaks to who my clients are. But again, every client and therapy relationship may not work. And either the therapist might recognize that, the client might recognize it. Sometimes it just kind of disseminates or falls apart. But either way it goes, just keep looking and trying and finding the therapist that fits your needs, and descriptors that you're looking for. Because cultural competence is really important, especially if your culture, um, is something that it's just a part of you. So sometimes my clients tell me, if I had a, they were like, tell me, if I had a white therapist, they wouldn't have understood that. Like, just
Mhm.
these cultural things that I share. Now, not every Black individual has the same experience, but there are some similarities, um, or shared experiences that I've had with my clients, that they'll be like, you know what, you understood what I had to say, or you know just different sayings or things like that. So sometimes my clients can appreciate that I share some of their experience as a Black woman, and that is valuable to them. But some people may not share that same experience with me, or have a different, like, I know that there are Black, Afro, or Latinx individuals that may be looking for a Latinx therapist, or individuals that were Black that were raised in, different cultures. So they may actually relate better to someone that aligns with the culture that they were raised in. So it just depends on what you're comfortable with and what you are seeking. So always check within yourself to see what is most comfortable and, will match your needs the most.
And how can people get in contact with you if they are looking for someone to possibly go into therapy with them, or if they just want to get more information?
So, to go into to getting therapeutic services from me, the best way to, get in contact with me is to go to my website, healingspotatl.com. There you will find a link to book a free 15-minute consultation. Also, if you there's a contact form on there, email address. Email is hello@healingspotatl.com. I do require consultations of all my clients. Right now, I'm only paneled with Cigna in Georgia, and hopefully, I'll be paneled with other insurance panels down the line. But right now, Cigna is confirmed, and then my other, I do have self pay rates that are listed on the site too.
And just to give a quick overview, what specific areas again do you work with so people will know whether it's a good fit for them just off the bat?
Right. So again, women that have struggled with childhood trauma, and if you say, "Hey, that's not me," but if you struggle with people pleasing, perfectionism, difficulties connecting with people, or holding healthy or having healthy relationships with individuals, whether they're platonic or, intimate in some nature, shutting people out. Those are some key things that are connected back to childhood trauma. And so you'll be surprised that those things, that I mentioned, may be attached or going back to childhood trauma. So not all the time people are like, I don't have any childhood trauma. But if you have the things that I just said,
You
such as
might have it.
people pleasing and perfectionism, anxiety, depression, OCD, fear of people liking you or not making people upset, you might want to come see me.
Well, there you have it, people. You know the absolute categories that you can look at, and don't be afraid to think about it. It might be something that you have experienced that it may need to be something looked at, especially with childhood trauma. I thank you so much for joining us tonight. I definitely believe it was a lot of information to help somebody, help all of us, really, because all of us have things that we have not dealt with. And as women, we try to cover it up. We can look amazing, but we don't know that there might be some things inside of us that we need to really get help with. And I'm definitely a big proponent of mental health. I mean, a lot of times people think, oh, well, I can just go to my coach about this, but you don't realize that you actually need to go to therapy. And so we have to refer people to that specific genre of therapy or servicing so that they can get the real help at the core of going back and dealing with some issues that they need to deal with. So I thank you on tonight, and we just continue to pray blessings upon your coaching, your therapy practice as you get ready to transition into full time practice. We're so excited for you. And so I definitely tell everybody to make sure if you need to go to therapy, look at Shae's site, see if it's a good fit for you, and get the information that you need. But regardless, like she said, no matter where you go, just get the help that you need. We are all in a place right now where we have to acknowledge where we're not okay and to get the help we need so that we don't get stuck in this place. So we are so grateful that you joined with us tonight for night one of the Exceptional Woman's Reboot. And so we pray that you'll join with us next Thursday night at 8 o'clock as well as we take another step in getting ourselves back on track. And if you want to get some of our gear, you can see our Facebook page at Exceptional Living Empowerment Coaching, and we'll have that information there as well as follow us so that you can get this information because I'll put up everybody's information because we want to make sure every woman gets the help they need so that they can live their best life. Mind, body, and spirit, live it exceptionally. So until next time, just continue to follow us, continue to follow our speakers, continue to get this information because we're all going to get to that place that we desire to be this year, regardless of what it looks like on the outside. We can still have our best year ever if we continue to do the work. And so that's what we're committed to. So make sure you tune in next Thursday night at 8 o'clock as we go another step further in our journey towards being exceptional women. Thank you so much, Shae. I'll see you soon. Good night.
Thank you.